Welcome to episode number 22 of the Livin The Dream video podcast. My name is Rishi Barran, and we've been doing this for a little while now. It's fun to see kind of how this has developed as a show, and someone who I've been really waiting to have on for a long time. And he's probably been as enthusiastic as anyone to be on this. He's made it known he wanted to be a guest, and he has certainly earned that right. Zach Grady, my guest today, joining us from Watertown, New York, where he works for 7 News, WWNY-TV. You know, when you look at him, when you're going to see him in a minute here, you're going to think it's Ken Griffey Jr. He's going to be wearing a Ken Griffey Jr. shirt. And the way he's got his hat, he kind of looks like Ken Griffey Jr. Hopefully, Zach, you got that same swing as the kid. You got that?
Well, I'm a righty, not a lefty, but no, I don't have quite as nice swing as he does. But I feel bad. I'm sitting here trying to think of famous 22s. You know, who wore number 22 best, as I'm on episode 22. And then you talk about Ken Griffey Jr. It's like, shoot, we should have waited 2 more episodes. I would have 24. Then you got Kobe too. Whoever gets episode 24 better recognize that.
I'm sure they will not. Well, they missed out on episode 8, so they had to wait to 24 to get that. The first 22 that came to mind for me was Andrew McCutcheon, and then I just thought, as a Bears fan, Matt Forte. I can't think of who is the greatest 22 of all time. Well, Emmitt Smith was 22, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, and that's probably it. And not to plug someone else's work or anything, but Mike Greenberg just released a book actually that has like the greatest athlete for each number 0 through 99. And I'm sitting here thinking about, I wonder who he picked, and I bet you it was probably Emmitt at this point.
Is there a 0 and a 00? That's the question.
I think so. And I'm trying to think. LeBron might have either 0 or 00 for some reason, because 6 I know is Bill Walton and 23 is Jordan. So LeBron didn't get either one of his.
No, he's just not as good as either of them.
So. No. There's no reason he should have been 6 or 23. So, but it's hard to have the greatest 100 athletes and not have LeBron in there.
Yeah, well, I guess it's not the greatest 100 athletes, though. It's the greatest per number. So you could be in a situation where you got somebody better, like 33 comes to mind, right? There's a lot of great 33s. Who's going to get that number? So it's not necessarily the best 100 athletes. It's the best per number. And, I don't know if I would put Bill Walton ahead of LeBron James, but, it's his list. He can, I guess, do what he wants with it and sell the books he's selling, right?
Well, if I said Bill Walton right now, and everyone's yelling already in this podcast and turn it off, let me say I meant to say Bill Russell. My apologies.
Oh, okay. That I can buy.
My apologies if I said Bill Walton. No, Bill Russell, absolutely.
Yeah, Bill Russell for a number of reasons, perhaps the greatest defensive player in any sport, right? So, and he also won at the college level too, and nobody's going to match the jewelry that he's got.
Greatest winner in the history of winning at the when it comes to high school, college, and professional athletics,
except for Joey Chestnut. Joey Chestnut has more mustard belts than he
anyway. Or Ric Flair. I mean, he's the greatest of all time.
All right. Well, hey, Zach Grady is making his claim to being one of the greatest of all time in his own right. He's pushing his way up. I don't know who the greats are that come through Watertown, Zach, but I know you're on pace there to do some great work. He's, it's funny just talking to him off the air. He's only been in the business for like 1.5 years or so, and it feels like it's been longer because of all the work that he's done. But Zach, let's hit rewind, a little Ahmad Rashad. This edition of Rewind, I know you get that reference. What started the dream for you? Where did this dream of being a sportscaster start?
Did you set that up to show my age? Because I mean, likely it probably started on Saturday mornings with Ahmad Rashad and NBA Rewind. And I mean, just growing up, and you can see it by the shirt that I wore, and I specifically wore this shirt for this reason. I mean, I thought I was going to be Ken Griffey or Deion Sanders or Michael Jordan. And when you realize that, hey, I'm not 6'6", I can't run a 4.2 40. You think of other ways to stay in the industry and stay around the game of sports. And I mean, I played high school football, played high school lacrosse, played college athletics. And then at some point life gets in the way and you get away from the game. But I mean, I think with any one of us, but it goes back to being a kid and playing the games and watching the games and being in the driveway with 3 seconds left and narrating, as Zach Grady gets the ball from Scottie Pippen and he goes left, he goes right, he shoots. And when you miss 7 or 8 or 9 times, you just hit rewind and keep narrating over and over. Or, you're in the backyard playing pickup baseball with the neighborhood, and, you got every one of you has a book of statistics for your entire 9 hitters. And, even though you're swinging each at bat, one time you're Ken Griffey, and one time you're Jay Buhner, and one time you're Edgar Martinez and A-Rod, and we could go through down that 96 Mariners lineup because I remember every single one of them. You want to be a kid again. And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but there are things that from the day that I graduated college the first time to getting back into this industry that got me away from being in the game. But I mean, the guys who get to play those games for a living, and get paid that, great for them. If I could be as close to that as possible. And so, because sports are beautiful and you get to see some amazing, amazing things. And I've got to see some amazing, amazing things. And those opportunities only came from wanting to be in this industry. And one thing that I also noted is we'll get to later, a little foreshadowing here, but you talk about the greats that came through Watertown. One of the reasons I picked to be in Watertown is because people are people that were in my newsroom and have gotten further along. So when we get to that point in this, that was definitely something we'll bring back up.
Well, when you were a kid, you grew up not that far away from where I did when I was a kid. You're from Colony, New York. I'm from Auburn, New York. And, I think back to listening to radio as a kid, that when WFAN was on in New York City, they would talk about the home of the Mets, Jets, Knicks, and Rangers. And those happen to be your teams. So as a sports fan, as someone who was hungry as a kid in New York State growing up, what was it like experiencing the highs and lows that came with all those teams when you were young?
You talk about WFAN. I'm envisioning WPIX 11 right now. The old, before it became the CW, and at one point it was the WB and everything, but WPIX 11 on Saturdays played Mets games. And usually after the game, it would be a matinee, a Saturday matinee movie. And I'm just taken back to those moments. But look, I mean, growing up in the 90s as a New York fan, I mean, the heartbreak, torment. I mean, it wasn't good. I mean, there's a reason that we still look back to 94 at this point in time. But I mean, Mets, Jets, Knicks, Rangers, unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of success. But I've been blessed to witness greatness in the regards of MJ and Bo and Kobe and Shaq and Derek Jeter and some of just the LeBron, some of the people that we talk about first names, we talk about that will just live on. The kid, to be able to see some of that, to be able to see some of the history. And I was a history major the first time I went to college. The second time I went to college, I was a sports major. To be able to bring those two worlds together. I mean, growing up, I think of, spending the days going through the newspaper box scores with my grandfather, looking at the standings, looking at all of the things that people right now listening to this probably have no idea what we're talking about, asking what's a box score, what's a newspaper, just what's a radio, AM radio. Yeah. These things that ingrain the love that we all have for sports. Now to be able to do that, to be able to get paid to do that, to be able to be invited onto the field as Jacob deGrom is doing rehab pitches, to watch him have conversations with Francisco Alvarez from 5 feet, 10 feet away. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That kept everyone in the seats.
Well, Zach, you talked about that dream of the athlete. You were a college athlete. And back to LeBron, Zach almost has as many degrees as LeBron has rings at this point. He started at Western New England College, which is now a university. He got his associates from Hudson Valley Community College. And then he went to SUNY Brockport and played a little D3 lacrosse there. What was it like being a college athlete with this thought of, hey, you know, I'm all into sports, I'm going to college, but I'm still living that dream out on the field?
Well, I like to say the first time that I went to school, I was a athlete student, not a student athlete. And maybe if I was a little bit more of a balance, I probably wouldn't have had to go to school a third time. But it's a unique experience that not everyone gets to have, not everyone gets to enjoy. And I think in the moment, I probably didn't enjoy it enough. Looking back now, you know, sitting at home on a Memorial Day weekend and watching the men's and women's lacrosse championships, you know, it's something that I'm so blessed to have been able to do. I would not have changed for anything in the world. But I will say I probably should have been more of a student and less of just an athlete. It's pretty cool to have your own gym, you know, an athlete gym, your own locker room. You get treated a little bit differently, yes, for sure. But again, I probably should have hit the books a little bit more.
Well, you did enough to make a living.
I
And
got by. I got by. I got out. Yeah.
you are someone who came with a bit of a different background than most of our students who we've had. You went on to work in the financial world. You worked at Edward Jones, the branch in Albany, New York, and you were making pretty good dough while you were there. What did you take from that experience? That two things, and I know I'm not supposed to ask two-part questions, but what did you take from that experience that let you know, well, this is not the road I want to continue down? And why don't we start with that before I ask the second question from that?
Don't want to get in trouble with Mike Tuck. I see how it is.
No.
From that, I learned what to do to not be happy, how not to be happy. I mean, I like to say all the time that at one point I was rich. Now I'm happy. And hopefully this job will provide a time where I will be rich and happy. And that may be further down the road, but it's kind of tying back to not being as much of a student as I should have been. When I got out of school, you know, I wasn't set up on the pathway that you need to be set up on the pathway to do what you want to do. I always thought that I was going to play college lacrosse, then I was going to be a teacher, or I was going to catch on a lacrosse program and continue coaching and just continue in that aspect. And I didn't put myself in a position really to do so, which led me to the roads of sales and management, which again, no regrets. I'm glad that I did it because it taught me how to talk to people, taught me how to diffuse situations. It taught me how to deal with management. It taught me taught me things about philosophy and psychology and sociology and a lot of things that you need to know in the professional world. Like, you can be the greatest sportscaster of all time, but if you're not a people person and you can't get along with your crew or your bosses or the sales team or anyone else, you're not going to get ahead in this industry. So being able to do some of those other things, being able to cold call, something that I have to do every day now as a reporter that I didn't think I'd ever have to do again. Knocking on doors. Talk about Edward Jones. I used to knock on doors, and this will be a Dan Le Batard reference. So anyone who gets this, good for you. I used to go knocking on doors trying to find guys named Murray and sell them muni bonds. And to be able to do that makes it a lot easier when you're knocking on a random person's door asking, hey, what did you see at that accident? What did you see, at this fire? What did you see at this incident where some people are in the worst moment of their life, and your job is to go in there and get the details and then put those details on TV for the entire community to see. So being able to learn some of those skills and attributes from retail, from sales, from management, from hospitality services, bartending, it made me a more complete round person. Now, again, I'm 38. Do I wish that I was 22 getting out of the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, putting myself in this position? I'd have a heck of a lot more hair on my head, yes, and I'd be a little bit in better shape than I am at the moment. But I don't think I would have the skills and the attributes and the people, social cues to be able to get as far as I have in this aspect. So I don't regret it, but I'll tell you, I wasn't happy. And to answer your question after that long-winded tangent, I looked around, I recognized I wasn't happy. And I was in my car. I was driving from one insurance appointment to another life insurance appointment, looking up, waiver claims and just a bunch of stuff that didn't matter. And I heard on the radio a commercial for the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. And I was listening to the Dan Le Batard show at the time on 104.5 The Team ESPN radio. And I thought it was a spoof. I thought it was a joke because I know Dan Patrick and Dan Le Batard are friends. Dan was at Dan Le Batard's wedding. I know that they're close, being a loyal listener of both shows. And I thought it was a joke. And then I heard it again, and I heard it again, and I heard it again. And then I was sitting there on Christmas Eve, looking around, thinking, because the stock market had had a bad day for the first time in 2 or 3 years. People were freaking out because of the Dow. And I just wasn't happy. So the next time that I heard that commercial, I picked up the phone and found out what that heck Full Sail University is about. I caught myself twice there. I almost had to have you drop it twice there, but I threw heck in.
Oh, it's good. You got it. No, we can. I don't want to have to edit this, Zach. I want to go straight through, but we can if we have to.
No. I'll make sure that we don't have the 8-second delay.
But you still had a difficult decision to make, right? Because you were about to hit a 6-figure income at a job that was paying you very well, something that, you get a lot of people and it's just all about financial security. And, they don't think about some of the stuff that you're talking about. But you had to decide at that point, I'm going to leave this behind and now I'm going to chase my dream. What motivated you to make that decision?
I mean, look, I'll be honest. I mean, Edward Jones motivated me to make that decision as much as I was motivated to make that decision. It wasn't, the cleanest of breaks. But ultimately, I think the biggest thing or the scariest thing is at my age and the situation that I was in, explaining to my friends and the family what I was about to do. Telling my mom, my grandmother, telling the people that I owned a home at that point. I still own a home, but saying, yeah, I'm going to put all of this on pause, drive 18 hours, 1,100 miles down south and go be a college student again. And, not have a full-time job, pick up, $10 an hour shifts at the Tampa Bay Viper game, which was awesome and led me to connections and contacts that I still use to this day. But no, I mean, at some point in time, it just goes back to you look around, you see, am I really doing what's going to make me happy and make me happy for the next 30 years of my life? Not to be too terribly cheesy here, but there's a movie, and I'm blanking on the names, George Clooney, and he went around the country firing people, basically. And there's a scene with J.K. Simmons where they talk about what got you, how much did they pay you to give up on your dream? And that happens all of the time. I see it all the time. And that's basically what it was. It was, how much longer was I going to put off doing what I really wanted to do for a paycheck? How much more did that paycheck need to be for me to not be happy, to not be satisfied, to keep for the next 30 years of my life doing this instead of doing what I actually wanted to do?
Well, you made the choice. You came to us and you jumped in right away. You were in at Full Sail right around the time when we started essentially offering studio opportunities all the time to our students because of the fact we finally had all the classes together, and we were at the point where you came in at the right time for that. We'll get to how that changed in a minute, but I think it was like your first week on campus or something. I saw you in the studio, and I feel like you never left after unless you were unable to be on campus, you never left. What got you in that mindset of being all in all the time?
Look, life is short and you only get so many opportunities. So if they're there, take advantage of them. And if you don't, someone else is going to. And I saw that actually, because when I wasn't there, when I was actually back in Albany, and we'll get into all of the reasons why, there was a whole new group of kids that came in and just blew us out of the water. I thought I put hours in, and then I got back and it was like, oh yeah, Brandon, Darren, KJ, and this whole crew have been here for 60 hours straight. It's like, I got to catch up to them now. But no, I mean, right next to my bed, I have the Mamba Mentality. I read it almost once or twice a month. I will get through it cover to cover. I mean, if you're not going to take advantage of those opportunities, someone else will. If you're not in the studio first, someone else is. You have to do these things. And I may not be the most talented person to ever make it out of Full Sail. I may not be the best looking person to ever make it out of Full Sail. And I say that because, look, we're in the superficial industry. I will make fun of the lack of hair I have on my head all the time. I may not have the best editing skills or hear for Nat sounds as great as somebody else, but I will outwork anyone. And if you don't have that mentality, somebody else will. And this isn't anything original. This isn't anything that I can come up with. This is what I learned from the people that I idolized growing up, in Michael Jordan, in Kobe Bryant, in Ken Griffey, and I won't say Dion because, he showboated a little bit, but I'm sure
he took a few plays off.
Yeah, I'm sure he worked hard. The fact is that if you're not doing those things, someone else will. So when I got on campus, I knew that I had 20 months. I had from January 2020 to when I graduated in September 2021 to make an impression. And I wasn't going to wait. So when I got on campus, I was in it's what creative presentation and I think BEM, business and entertainment media. So those first 2 months, you don't need any IL hours. You don't need to be in the studio. You don't need to be doing anything in regards to actually being a part of the sportscasting program. But I wanted to be. And that was the difference. It's not about the stuff that you need. It's about the stuff that you want. And it goes back to when I was in retail and management and sales. I always said, look, if you only do what's on your job description, if you only do what you're asked to do in that job title, that's going to be a job title for the rest of your life. You're never going to move to the next one. You need to be self-motivated. You need to show people, hey, okay, maybe I'm a technical director, but no, I want to actually direct. Hey, maybe I'm a segment producer. No, I want to be an executive producer. Hey, I'm a sideline reporter. No, I want to be Chris Fowler. I want to be leading the studio show. If you only do what they expect you to do, that's all you're ever going to do. You need to do more than what's expected. So yeah, I walked in and as a creative presentation student and asked, hey, can I sign up for IL hours, whatever the heck those are.
That competitive mentality resonated throughout the group that you went through the program with. You all motivated each other. You were competitive amongst each other. What did you get out of that type of relationship with all the members of your group?
I got better. I got better, and that's all that mattered. And I made them better, and they made my work better. And things that Tanner was good at with editing, I would go to him. And when Tanner would have issues performing on camera, he would go to me. When I needed some obscure stat that I knew Keith knew, I would go to him. When he needed some help with, some technology, he would come to me. Nolan and I would pitch scripts and we would write and we would make ourselves laugh for hours on end. But I got better. And I will tell you, I remember the start of my second year. So January 21, right as I'm in OBS 1 with Robert Estachio, my computer breaks. And it's right in between, it's Christmas break. So, we have Christmas Eve holiday, we have New Year's Eve holiday. And I find out that I'm not going to get my laptop back for the first week of OBS. And Robert basically was just like, hey, man, like, you can't take the class. You got to take it next month. Don't worry. We'll switch some things around. It'll be fine. And I just remember saying, I'm not leaving my group. I don't care what I have to do, how we have to do it. And I ended up having to take OBS and P&P 3 at the same month, where normally those are back-to-back months. And also while doing that, I was interning at ESPN Radio. So like it was the most stressful month of my life. Everyone asked what was the hardest month, and my answer is different because, like I said, I did OBS and P&P 3 at the same time. And I mean, between the work for Mark Condren, the work for Robert, the work for Roger, I wouldn't have got through it without having been in that particular group. If I was doing that with other students, or if I was doing that by myself, because I know there was a few groups that when I was going that actually there was individual students, I wouldn't have gone through it. And if I did, my work wouldn't have been as good. The content wouldn't have been as good. It would have just been checking the box. So the healthy competition just made us better, each and every one of us. And I believe each and every one of us actually has a job in the industry right now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, you know, those classes you took, two of the more challenging classes in our curriculum at the same time, I can only imagine what that was like. So we'll forget about that for now, because I'm sure you don't want to relive those memories of how hard you had to work through that. But the group...
I would give anything to relive those 2 years at Dan Patrick School. I'll tell you this right now, hard or not, those are the best 2 years of my life. I would do them over in a second. And yes, I am saying I would redo COVID, because those were the 2 years that I went to school.
Well, that's where I was going next. You and your group came in to speak with me, and you guys wanted to learn some things about play-by-play, and I was going over some stuff by play-by-play. And I think maybe it was Gus walked in and kind of told us that this was like the day after the whole Rudy Gobert situation. And it was Hall of Fame week. And all of a sudden we find out that things are changing. And I think that was the last time I saw you in person for a while. Take us through, you know, you being all in, you're on campus, you're excited about everything. And then all of a sudden you weren't able to be on campus for a while. How did you handle that?
That was March 14th, 2020. We were sitting in a room way too close to each other in a
yeah, I guess it was
contained, no windowless space. And actually, I was supposed to call a Rollins game that night. I was supposed to call Rollins baseball that night. And yeah, Gus came in and said the game's canceled. We're all going home. You know, but you know, it was weird. At that point, though, we thought it was a couple of weeks. We thought maybe it was a month. You know, I was in intro to sportscasting at that point. So I had a feeling that we probably weren't coming back for that class at all. But then I was looking at the schedule. I figured, okay, we'll be back by Easter break. And then Easter break turned into Memorial Day. And then Memorial Day turned into the next and then the next and the next. And at some point in time, it got to, I mean, I probably stayed a month down in Florida, just hanging out, not really doing anything, you know, taking the classes. But other than that, just being in my apartment. And I think everyone was. I mean, that was COVID. We look back now and we say, oh, we did this, we did that. No, at that point in time, we were still putting our groceries outside after we got home and spraying them down with bleach.
Yeah, I remember that.
Didn't know what was going on. So, I mean, it was a scary time at that point. So I was just righting the ship, you know, just kind of making sure I was getting my classwork done. And, you know, we didn't have sports at that point. So, I mean, I will say that this is a credit to the course directors. Every night we had Mike Tirico, Ken John, Dan Patrick, Nicole Briscoe, Jay Harris, Ken Khan, Craig. Wow, I messed his name up again.
I was just thinking the same thing. We won't show him this.
I'm just trying to think of I mean, Bill Simmons, Scott Van Pelt, Michael Wilbon. I know there's going to be people that I've missed, and I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
we did so many. It would take us the rest of this podcast for you to list all of them. So, but
And then we had trivia events, and we did things that kept us engaged. And I look back and I think about who signed on to those Zoom sessions, who was in all of those sessions. It was the same 15, 20, 25 kids every night. And those same 15, 20, 25 kids are all employed,
That's a great point.
all, you know, active on the Dan Patrick Facebook page on our social media feed. I mean, that energy from everybody else fuels you. And if you were a part of that, it was just another day. You know, you looked and you figured out, okay, what's on the sports calendar today? Not a whole lot. Okay, but we have a 2-hour session with Mike Tirico. Like, okay, like let's figure out some questions for Mike Tirico. That requires you doing a little bit of research because you don't want to just ask whatever. And then after a while, you see it's the same people in there. You develop a sense of camaraderie. You know who you're going to see that night. And it just, you had to do what was in front of you. You had to just take advantage of it. And then slowly things kind of opened up and you had more opportunities, and you just had to take advantage of those opportunities when they were there.
Well, and you also created opportunities that weren't there. And one of those people in the sessions who you've maintained a good relationship with and just saw the other day was Justin Velasquez. And you guys have become pretty tight, but I remember kind of when you first, I don't know if the word is met because you weren't in the same building, but I was helping Justin. Justin would ask to basically get feedback on his play-by-play every Friday. So he would do it every Friday. And Zach wanted to get in on it. So I had Zach come in. And so it was just me, Zach, and Justin. Justin would basically record the Mets game, and he would actually do it live. He had like MLB Pass or whatever, and he would do play-by-play. He would do research as if he was calling a Rollins game, and he would call the game. And eventually Zach started doing that with him. What did that open up to you once you started doing that extra work with Justin?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, that was me freaking out a little bit that I wasn't doing enough at that point in time. I'm trying to think where I was in the program, but I just, I was having these feelings that I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't experiencing enough. I wasn't learning enough. I reached out to you, to Mac McDonald, to Mike Tuck, a couple other individuals, Grady, to try to figure out ways that I can just do more things. What opportunities are there? And yeah, you introduced me to Justin, and he's someone that to this day I'm still trying to work with and to create content with. And I mean, it got us more reps. It got me out of my comfort. Look, you want to talk about being out of your comfort zone? Imagine doing play-by-play of a recorded Thursday night football game in your mom's living room in Colony, New York, because, that's just where you happen to be. Trying to explain to your mom, hey, can you keep it down? I'm trying to call this third quarter play. And then that turns into her sitting there and watching you do this and like actually saying, wow, I'm learning something today. So, it gives you skills, confidence, reps, but it kept me educated. It kept me engaged, and it gave me an opportunity to meet you months before I would have, given my situation. And this is what I will say, that it was different from my particular group. And, a couple of the ones, kind of right around us. I think like basically anyone through like Ellie's group, who was a couple of months before us, through like KJ and Darren's group, who was a couple of months after us. We were really the ones affected most by it. And the thing that we didn't get is that you didn't get to meet the course directors or interact with the course directors in other than that one particular month you were in that class. Where with IL hours, you get the opportunity to meet each individual. And the first week that we were there, I talked about the IL hours. I got to meet you, Grady, Mike Stinton, and Jackie Bowers, who taught intro for myself I know that she's not teaching intro anymore, but I know that she was mine. So I got to meet all 4 of those course directors before I was actually in their courses, which was such a big advantage for me because I got to see what Mike Sitton's final exam was 6 months before I was in his class. I got to see Gordy's final exam a year and some change before I was in his class. And we didn't get that because once everything shut down with COVID in this month in May, we're in Lee's class. And Lee's the only teacher we see for a month. And as soon as May ends and we go to June, we never see Lee again. You know, and vice versa. And that continued on all the way through Debbie's class and Christine's class, up back until basically March of the following year when we were already in Mike Tuck's class, an advanced or an intro to or an interviewing class. So a full year where you only got to experience that teacher one time. That's what we missed. So by being able to do those things with Justin, I got to be able to work with you personally and get exponentially better on things that I didn't get a chance to get experienced back. Now, the students, the individuals going through school now take advantage of that IL, because if you can get in there and introduce yourself to the course directors, work with them, see how they work, how they produce, how they direct, the things that they put in, the little tweaks, how they work with the individuals in their class, by the time you get there, you're miles ahead.
We're talking to Zach Grady. He works for 7 News in Watertown, New York. And during that time, Zach, you were talking about trying to find ways to do more than you could when you're sitting at home. And one thing that really was another turning point for you was the work that you did at 104.5, the team, ESPN Radio, with Roger Weiland, who is kind of the guy in Albany. Where did that experience take you in terms of development?
I mean, well, hopefully in a few months, it will take me back WWNY-13 in Albany, New York, and 104.5 the team ESPN Radio. So we're still hoping that we can get back there because of that experience. But I mean, look, one of the things that's pretty cool is I can say that I'm in Freddie Coleman's phone book and he's in mine because of Roger Weiland's influence. You know, I got to have a weekly phone conversation with Tim Kirchin, and when you get to name drop Gus Ramsey and Roger Weiland to Tim Kirchin, you know, you're in good standing. But I mean, it's another attribute and skill. And I will say that if there was one class that I wish could be added to the Dan Patrick curriculum, it would be a radio specific, not podcasting, because anyone can do a podcast. Anyone can hit record and have 5 of their friends listen in their garages. Because look, I have a podcast and I'm sure only about 5 friends of mine listen to it on the regular. That's just what happens with podcasts, because everyone has one. Unless you're a former athlete, you're probably not in the top 10 on Spotify right now. But radio is different. And radio, and Dan Patrick himself will talk about this, how it's the true art form. And your true feelings and emotions and, you know, thoughts and just everything that you really actually believe can come out in a different structure. I don't want to say unstructured, because it is structured, but it's not segment based. It's not TV. It's not as regimented. Thank you. We're going to edit that one.
No, we're not. I like that.
As television maybe, where you need to have, you know, your in cues, out cues, your TRTs. You need to make sure all your graphics are ready to go. Yeah, Tyreek Hill went off, but he went off for 203 yards in the first quarter and only finished with 269. So clearly Todd Bowles knows how to make adjustments to shut down Tyreek Hill. Clearly that Bucs defense knows how to make adjustments to shut down Patrick Mahomes in the second half. Radio is just, sometimes you can turn the mics on and be you and let yourself really come out. So I got to do that, and I got to do it in a top 60 market during the NFL playoffs. I got a chance to have a weekly segment where not everyone got that. Interns before me and interns after me haven't had that weekly segment, but I was able to get on each week and make some picks. And, I can say that Roger is a friend more than just a mentor and a colleague. And hopefully in about 6 months, I can say that he's also my boss. But no, on to the next.
Speaking of picks, I remember you picking against Josh Allen every week when he would send me that stuff. And it was like, I remember you saying, like, I got to stay all in on this Josh Allen thing because.
Have I been wrong yet? I don't see Josh Allen with that hardware. He made me on the cover of Madden.
You made him sound like Sam Darnold.
Look,
sorry to bring that name up, by the way. I didn't.
No, it's fine. I got to cheer for Aaron Rodgers, and I don't know how I feel about that yet.
I don't know how I feel about it either.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. He's the best quarterback in Jets franchise history, but there are just some things, and we don't need to digress into that, but there are just some things involving Aaron Rodgers that make me wonder if I really want to cheer for him as my quarterback.
Well, let's take it back to campus, because you did get back to campus, and as has been the theme throughout what we've been talking about so far, you went all in on it. And one thing that you really jumped on, that Ness Vera got you into, and Chris and some of the other people on campus, was the professional fighting league. And you mentioned before people like Michelle Montaigne and Brandon Daniels and a lot of other people, Justin, a lot of other people were involved in it. But there's some clips of you interviewing some pretty big time people in the world of sports. How did that go down and kind of bring back that juice you were missing from being on campus?
So first I'll answer, because that was a double question there. But I will answer how it went down. Was I answered an email, and this, I am speaking directly to the Full Sail students here. I answered an email. Chris and Nestor sent an email out and said, hey, does anyone know anything about MMA or interested? And I just simply said, yes. And if you don't always say yes, opportunities you'll miss them. So no, I answered an email. I said, yeah, I'm interested. And that turned into an experience that, again, it turned into, by the time I graduated, an actual paid gig, something that I could put on my resume. And it taught me other aspects of how to deal with we all say that we're not going to freak out in the moment. Oh, we're not going to fanboy. We're not going to do that. Well, stand next to Ray Lewis and Michael Vick cage side and then find out. Ask Jorge Masvidal a question as he's telling you that he doesn't want that top light on because it's hurting his eyes. And you have to say, no, Mr. BMF champion, that light needs to stay on. In fact, that light is super necessary. But I say that because I did my research. I know that he had this famous quote after he knocked out Ben Askren, where they said, were those last punches necessary? And he responded with, yeah, those punches were necessary. They were super necessary. So when I did that, it brought his guard down. It let me finish that interview. Those are little things that you only pick up with experience. And the school is amazing in all of the reps and opportunities that it gives us. But if you don't take those extra ones, if you don't take that extra step, if you don't take those extra opportunities, you won't get better. Look, again, I will say this directly to the Full Sail students. If you enroll, show up, do only what is asked of you, only do your homework, only do the minimum number of ILs, and only go to class, and then don't do any of the extra things, all those extra opportunities, at the end of the day, sure, you'll have a piece of paper, but you won't be where you need to be to get ahead. And it goes back to the 15, 20 people that during COVID were on those Zooms every day, the KJs and the Darrens and all those kids that were in IL sessions and directing for 60 hours a week, plus going to class. They were putting 60 hours in plus going to class. Like, if you don't do those things, sure, you're gonna get a tremendous experience from the school, but you won't get everything that you can get from this amazing opportunity that these people have put in front of you.
In addition to that, you did get that piece of paper, because I see it behind you right now. And the final
and my degree. I got a
Good
couple of
for
them.
you. Congratulations. Yeah, you had a few awards on your way out, which I think I have a couple pictures to show over this podcast. But I do want to chat about your final days, right? Between the final class where you got very emotional and you had a very cool hype video going into your final sportscast. Between then and graduation, what was that final week or so at Full Sail like for you?
Not a lot of sleep, but a lot of fun. Um, I mean, like between let's see, that final week we did what, two TV shows, in PNP 7. You have to do two basically full TV shows. I had an NXT taping that I did on Tuesday night, which was pretty cool because I was directly in front of where Karrion Kross threw Bronson Reed, through the glass, and like that was a pretty cool spot. Then I also had meetings for the PFL that week because playoffs were upcoming. And, there was karaoke night with the crew because it was the last time that we were going to be all together, packing as well because, my mom was coming down and I knew after graduation we were headed back up to New York for a couple of months. So it was crazy. And not a single one of us slept the night before our last class. Well, I know that for a fact because we were all texting each other.
Definitely not recommended, by the way, those of you coming through.
Yes, not recommended. And Reese's, one of the reasons why I probably was so emotional in that last day was because I had no sleep in me. But no, I remember being up at 4 a.m, cutting video, which again, video is due at 9 p.m. the day before. Any assets or graphics need to be in the day before. So we were all doing what we weren't supposed to be doing. So do not listen or use that, say, hey, Zach said you could do that, because I did not say that. But we were cutting, we were making assets, getting everything. And I mean, we're all just texting each other, how far along are you? It's people are asking grammar questions and production questions and, how to properly, what's the naming conventions, and just like I said, I wouldn't trade it ever. I wouldn't do anything different. And those last few days, last couple of hours, there was a reason why I set my show up that way as well. As, my first segment, because we have to do a 2-segment show, 5 minutes, or however you want to divide them up, be unique, be creative. That first one was about me. And then that second segment was me passing the torch. And I kept that really close to the chest. Not a lot of people knew what I was doing. I know I surprised you a little bit as well, but it meant a lot. And if you watch that hype video, seeing who's down there, as I've mentioned their names before, who was there in the studio that day between Mike Tux and Gordy's and Mike Stinson's and yourself and Gus and kids from other classes that specifically signed up to work IL that day for our class and be there. And what was really cool too is that that was a tour day. And I know the group that came in and toured and saw us on our last day, I've heard nothing but good things about. So I hope that some of the things that they heard us, myself, Nolan, Keith, Tanner, Dan, Jonathan talk about, I mean, maybe it resonated, and that feels pretty good.
Yeah, you gave a speech to that next big group, which actually just graduated, and several of them already have jobs. So that was a special moment for all of us. There were a lot of torches passed on that day, and it was special for me to be a part of it too. But you made it, you got through that, and now you got a job in the industry. So what's it feel like to be living the dream now?
I'll tell you when I get there, because it's not quite there yet, but it's not about where you get. It's, the journey along the way. So, I mean, every day, something different, something new, something fun. I meet new people every day. I talk to new people every day. Look, I talk to the same city manager and city councilors probably 3-4 times a week, which can be a little frustrating, but it's something different and something new. I get to do fun experiences and at the same time, serious work. I mean, I've had a one-on-one interview with the third highest ranking Republican in the United States of America. And At the same time, I've fed a corn dog to a bull at a local fair. I mean, you get a little bit of range of everything. But the thing that I get every single day is that I get to use a skill from every class. I get to interview, I get to cut, I get to edit, I get to produce, I get to write, I get to create packages, I get to track. So, I'm using vocal training. I'm using a skill that we are taught in a class throughout the entire process. I'm using each one of those every single day. So, I mean, by doing news, I am getting exponentially better, I think, quicker because I get more opportunities, as you had mentioned. I mean, I'm going to be anchoring in a few hours tonight, which, it is a really, really fun thing to do. It really kind of is. And it's stressful because you're sitting by yourself in a room with all of these lights on you. There's no one else there. I mean, the weather guy is, far, far away in the corner. The sports guy is still finishing cutting his highlights. Like it's awesome. I would not trade it. And at some point, I just hope to keep getting to be able to do it in bigger and better places.
And I think those days are coming soon because you've worked on all those skills and gotten so much experience being there. And look, when I was growing up, I knew Watertown as this place way up north in the cold where Billy Fusillo, those who know Billy, you know who I'm talking about. It's going to be huge. Had his dealership near there. But for you, you went there and you had that initiative to go there and say, hey, I'm probably not going to be doing a lot of sports, at least to start, but this is going to lead me there. How is covering news as both a reporter and anchor different than what you do for sports?
I mean, the difference is that you have to be a little bit more, I think, versatile or a little bit more I don't want to say well-rounded, but you have to be able to be a little bit more adaptable because you're going to be doing something different. I mean, you could be, like I said, doing a fair coverage one day, which is super fun and upbeat, and you're smiling and your human interest story. Let me look for cool nat sounds and sights, and you're using different skills. If I'm at the fair, I'm looking at how can I tell this story with sound? How can I tell this story with pictures? How can I use my camera? How can I use my microphone to tell this story? Where if I'm at the scene of a DW or an accident because of alcohol induced, one person dead, another in serious condition, I have to use my reporting skills. I have to find out details. I have to speak with officers and firefighters who really don't want to give out a lot of information, but understand that that they still need to help you do your job. And you have to be in a much, much different headspace and different performance space. Christine and Debbie talk about neutral voice and neutral face and getting ready and getting prepared. Well, you can't be smiling 3 seconds before going on air about a crash because you don't know when they're actually throwing it to you. Maybe they throw it to you a couple seconds early or a couple seconds late. You need to be in that mind space immediately versus, yeah, you're at the fair. You better have a smile on your face. You better be enjoying yourself. You better be having fun. I mean, last week or 2 weeks ago, right before Memorial Day, on Monday, I got to spend the day on the golf course and this was the story on Monday is just that the golf course is now accepting cash. That literally was what the story was. It was, hey, the golf course is accepting cash. It used to be credit only. You have to go up to the golf course and do a story. Okay. So how am I going to do that? Well, let me bring my driver up. Let me bring my putter up and let me get good nat sound. Let me get different angles of the ball hitting off. Let me go out and ask the guy if I can just take a cart and literally just videotape different golfers around the course. Putting, chipping. You can make a really, really good story, cool visually, sound-wise out of Thompson Park Golf Course accepts cash. Like, you have to make the most of that. And then I got to ride that week. I got to do that. I also went to a classic car show, which was pretty cool. I got to see some amazing cars. I went ATV riding on Thursday because I got to get, again, up at 6 a.m., but you're riding ATVs with the American Legion on Memorial Day weekend, going from Civil War gravesite to gravesite, laying flags. Like, even I got emotional. Like those pulls at your heartstring. And then Friday, you get to do a boater safety class. So yeah, you get to go out on the St. Lawrence River for a couple of hours and get to take your GoPro and just go enjoy yourself. Like, there's a lot of different cool, fun things that you can do that don't necessarily have to be on a baseball diamond or on the football field or on the pitch.
Go ahead.
As I say, with all that being said, the stuff you see on my highlight reel, the stuff that you see on my demo reels, the stuff that I send to news directors, yeah, it's when I was interviewing Jacob deGrom, or at the Bassmasters, or covering the Class C state championship football game. Yeah, those are also really fun too.
And that shows you too that even if you accept a news job like Zach did, which I think was a really good decision, you're going to get enough because you're going to be covering some sports stuff. So you could put together a really good sports reel without even having that be your primary coverage, especially if you make it known, hey, anytime there's a sports story, I want to be on it, and, you know, get to know the people in sports and all that. And a news manager, not necessarily one of my favorite news managers, but once told me that being a journalist is a working man's way of seeing the world and experiencing things. And think of all the things Zach just said he did in 1 week. That's a lifetime for a lot of people to get to do a lot of that fun stuff. So it's exciting to see you enjoying all that. And there's certainly ups and downs along the way, but it's great to see that you're getting to do so many different things. And one thing I wanted to ask you, Zach, is where have you seen yourself grow the most in the time you've been in Watertown?
Patience, probably. And I will say that that doesn't mean that I don't need to continue growing in regards to my patience, that I don't need to sometimes not look at other people's successes and get angry or jealous about them, because everyone walks their own path. And before we started recording, there was a few people that we were talking about back and forth, and I am so incredibly happy for each and every one of them. But yeah, sometimes when I open up the Facebook feed or the Instagram feed, I'm like, man, I really wish I was doing what they were doing and not at the city council meeting. Like, y'all at the national championship game or the Super Bowl, and I'm at, a zoning board meeting. Like, but I think where I've grown the most is probably just being patient, realizing that everyone does walk their own path. Everyone in this industry, it's just, I always say success is where preparation meets, just luck. Not luck, but where preparation meets determination. And I mean, look, you can be prepared, but opportunity has to be there. You have to be in the right place at the right time. And my goal is just, hopefully I keep doing what I'm doing to put myself in that right place. We talked about Watertown. A couple of the reasons why I came here, because I thought it would put me in a good opportunity to set up for the next places. I don't know how many people have gotten an opportunity or what the ILs have been like with Craig, whether he's given more talks or but when I was there, Craig, an individual who really instilled something in me, was the idea of putting yourself near where you want to be. And I relate it as I have the baseball hat on and the Griffey shirt. I'm playing single A, double A ball at the moment. Like, my goal is to make it to New York City. My goal is to make it national, make it to the bigs. If you're in national, we're going to call that making it to the bigs. Well, you don't just start there. As good as anyone is, you don't just start there. So you have to go play some AAA ball. And, if AAA ball, we'll say that's New York City. That's the cream of the crop when it comes to the market size before you get to national. So to get there, you're not going to just start there. Most people don't just start there. Well, you got to go play some AA ball. Well, that's Albany, New York. That's where I'm from. I know that area. I want to be there. I want to check off being a sportscaster in my hometown off. Well, to get to AA, to get to a top 60 market, you got to start somewhere. You got to start in Watertown. And I picked Watertown because there are 3 or 4 individuals that started sitting at the same desk that I'm working at right now that are working in Albany, that are working for CBS Sports, that are working for NBC National, that have made it to the show. And I worked at 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. So did Freddie Coleman. You have to identify places that have those pipelines. It's the same thing as recruiting. It's the same thing as scouting. If you want to get to those places as a baseball player, it's the same thing as if you're covering baseball. So that's where I want to try to get to. And that's why I'm here in the frozen tundra of Watertown, New York. But like I said, that you have to be patient. And there are days where I'm not patient. There are days where I come home and what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why did I make the right decision? Like I said, you look and you see someone's covering this amazing event, or they're getting press credentials to this amazing event, or, you turn on ESPN and you see someone that you used to produce segments with now holding the ESPN mic flag. And all that happens is you look and you have a smile on your face because you're so happy for their accomplishments, and you realize that hopefully it'll come for you as well.
7 News, 7 days a week. Reporter Zach Grady.
Where officers deployed a stinger or a tire deflation.
And with a foot of powder already on the ground.
Local news you can trust. Reporter Zach Grady on 7 News this evening at 6.
Well, you're the first one that when we've done this video podcast that's already answered the third big question right before I was going to ask it. So my question of where do you want it to take you, I'm going to kind of delve into another category here. How is what you're doing now preparing you for making those stops along the way that you just mentioned?
You have to take a little bit of everything you learn from someone that can be a mentor or can be someone who can teach you something, and take a little bit of them and mix that with you. And that's how you get your brand, or as we say, that's how you get your TV voice. That's where you find your voice. So I think that along the way, I've been able to take some things that I've learned from Roger and take some things that I've learned from my news director and my assistant news director and people that I worked with here in Watertown, and take some things that I've been able to learn. And I cannot list every single course director from Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, but just know every single one is in there. I'm not going through there and forgetting someone and getting in trouble for that. So just know that there's a little piece from every single course director that I took, and probably a different piece than Nolan would have taken, or any of my other classmates. But I took something from each individual, and then take something from what I've learned in other industries. Because I have my sales mentor, my retail mentor, and you just kind of got to build all of those together. And once you fit the pieces of the puzzle in the right spot, once you get the edges all lined up, you can start filling in the middle. And that's where you find your brand. That's where you find your voice. That's where you find who you really are. And I will say, there's a reason that I put this shirt on specifically, because before this, I will let you know, I had the polo shirt on. I had the hair slick done nice. I had the WWNY logo, the corporate. It's just, that's who I was at Edward Jones. And that's not who I am. There was a reason that when I want people to see me with the Ken Griffey shirt on, because, hey, he was your favorite player's favorite player, and he was my favorite player. And that confidence and that brand and that just being who you are, that's how you finally learn how to answer that question. Because when I was there and I got asked, hey, is that your TV voice? The answer then was no. Right now, I still don't have it, but I'm a lot closer than where I was.
Love that. Good stuff. All right. That brings us to our dream sequence, where you get 3 quick fire questions that you have to answer. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
All right. Dream Mets outfield. 3 players. Go.
Oh, and do they have to have played for the Mets? Because Ken Griffey Jr. would have been one of them.
No, I'll let you give the Bonds and Griffey in the same outfield like Seinfeld.
The George Costanza.
Yeah.
No. We will go Mets. We will go Dream Mets. We will go. Listen, here's Carlos Beltran. Obviously, I mean, for most of my formative years, he patrolled center field, and he was just spectacular out there. We'll have to go. We'll go 86, and we're gonna go Mr. McGraw, because I mean his kid is kind of cool too. And we're gonna have to go Benny Agbayani because of that 2001 run, and just it was fun to say Benny Agbayani.
Yes, it always was fun. All right, good answer. Did you say Tug McGraw? Didn't he pitch?
Did I? No, McGraw was. Wow, I messed up McGraw and Mahomes' dad.
He also pitched.
I know nothing about the 86 Mets.
All right. Give me one more then.
All right. Well, I mean, we'll have to just go with what's out there right now, and I'll take our new guy, Mr. Nimmo. I mean, we gotta keep, hopefully maybe the next Mets captain.
All right. Next question. You brought up like corn dogs earlier. The New York State Fair is just down the road from both of us, I guess, where I grew up. Dream State Fair food stand.
I mean, I've heard some amazing things about down in Texas and these deep fried peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I have not experienced one myself, but until I do, I think my answer has to be a deep fried peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
All right.
But we're gonna go New York. Probably there's that one stand where they give you the fresh milk before you get to see the dairy butter statue, and that chocolate milk is the best chocolate milk that I've ever had.
It's incredible. Final question. Dream non-sports interview. Someone you've not interviewed yet that's not a sports figure.
Sean Carter.
Oh, wow. Good stuff. Yes. All right. One final thing, and then we'll wrap it up. You know, what's your final piece of advice for broadcasters and people from our program who want to work in the business?
Go to the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. No, live the dream. Live the dream. Look, I was unhappy going through the nightmare. I'm living the dream right now, and there's bumps along the way. I mean, not every dream is a great dream. Some dreams are bad dreams. Some dreams are scary. Some dreams are fun. Some dreams you wake up in a cold sweat, and some dreams you wake up with a smile on your face. But if you live the dream every day and do the work and believe, the number 4, Mr. Lasso, believe, maybe one day you'll make it.
Well, Zach is well on his way. He is living the dream. That's the name of this video podcast. I want to thank Zach Grady, Watertown's finest, 7 News, who will be anchoring in just a few hours. So if you want to catch that, jump online and see if you can find it. Or if you're in Watertown, you can turn on the local tube. But thank you.
I was going to say, not to cheesy plug here, but you can find all of that coverage at www.zachgrady.com.
That's a great place to go, and it is a well put together website. Thanks again to Zach Grady for joining us today. All of you, keep on living your dream.